video is about using trigonometric ratios to find missing angles, and this video goes along with 3 CCRSM standards. Let's get started. First, let's go back to Algebra 1 and talk about this notation. You should be familiar with the idea that this is a function. And what a function is, it has an input and goes to an output. For example, a very simple function is the function f of x equals x plus 2. Whatever comes in, you add 2 and it's the output. So if I have 2 come in, 2 plus 2 is 4 and the output is 4. If I have 5 come in, I add 2 and the output is 7. If 9 comes in, 11 goes out. Okay? Input, output. That's a function. Okay? You may not be as familiar with this notation that f to the negative first power is an inverse function. Meaning, it says, hey, I have an output, where did it come from? Meaning, if I got as an output 6, I would say, it must have come from 4. Or if I get an output of 8, I must say, it must have come from 6. Okay? Now that's important for us because we will begin, as you move on in math, begin to think about trig ratios more like functions. Okay? And this function, our trig function, our sine, cosine, tangent functions have an angle as an input, and the output is a ratio. Okay, we use that, and that same notation, the sine of 45 is some ratio. Okay, the cosine of 67 degrees is some ratio. Okay, that's even the notation that we have to use in the calculator. Okay, but this inverse function notation says, hey, I have a ratio. What angle did it come from? Okay, and that's how we're to find angles is by using sine, cosine, or tangent ratios. Okay, again, our mnemonic is so, ka, toa. That's useful to kind of have in the back of our mind. All right, let's look at this. In this first one, my angle I want to find is angle x. I'm focused on that angle. Okay, and in this right triangle, which side's the hypotenuse? Well, 29 is the hypotenuse. Okay, and 24 is opposite of the angle. That's the opposite. So the ratio that I know is the opposite over the hypotenuse, which is the sine ratio. I know the sine ratio is 24 over 29. Okay, but I have the ratio. I want to know the angle, so I use the inverse sine, which is written as sine to the negative first power using this notation right here. And your calculator or your phone or whatever you're using probably has, if it has sine, cosine, tangent, it'll have the inverses as well. Make sure you're in degrees. Okay, so the second sine on the L34, second sine of 24 divided by 29, enter, and I get the angle of 55.85 degrees. Okay, that's the angle that has a sine ratio of 24 over 29. Okay, by the way, on your phone, you would do 24 divided by 29, hit enter, and get that ratio, and then hit second, and then you'll see the sine negative first button. You hit that button, it'll give you the angle. Okay, let's try one more, and that's right here, and that's the angle. Now, is 9 the leg adjacent to the angle, the leg opposite the angle, or the hypotenuse of the triangle? It's adjacent next to the angle. Is 20 the leg opposite the angle or the hypotenuse of the triangle? And it's the hypotenuse of the triangle. So the ratio that I know this time is the cosine ratio, the adjacent over hypotenuse. And that cosine ratio is 9 over 20. And I'm going to use the inverse cosine function, which is written cos negative 1 of this angle. And the inverse cosine of 9 over 20 is 63.26 degrees. And that's the angle that has a cosine ratio of 9/20. Okay, there's some more problems down there that you can try if you want, but that's the basic idea of these inverse trig functions going from ratios back to angles. Thank you so much for watching.